Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and there's a lot to talk about today, man. First of all, Washington is one of 4 Hard Knocks candidates for this upcoming offseason. I'm actually pretty excited about that, especially with us already being very chaotic and not having much stability. I feel like Hard Knocks can't make it much worse, so I feel like, if anything, I want to see the behind the scenes of what this team looks like with a new owner and a new offensive coordinator and Ron Rivera possibly in his last year and Jack Del Rio and all of the new players, draft picks, and stuff like that. Literally, the only reason I've ever not wanted Hard Knocks was because I felt like it would be a distraction. At this point, you can't get more distracting than what you already naturally have on the team. Of course, I'm gonna dive into all of that and the other candidates as well, and who's the most interesting between the 4 of us. And also, big time news, man. The Titans already want to hire DB's coach Chris Harris as their defensive coordinator. They're already trying to set up an interview and everything, man. I'm scared. I do not want to let Chris Harris go, but he may be on the way out, and we got to talk about why. And then also, Jeremy Reaves makes the first all-pro team voted by players and more, man. We got a lot to talk about. This is one of those Rico reports where it's just a lot of random stuff that we talk about all in one video, and I'm excited, man. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, like I keep saying, man, just because the Commander season is over does not mean the Street Score season is over. I have so much content to do. Y'all know, if anything, I do my best work in the off season. Y'all see I'm out here posting like 2-3 videos a day minimum because there's so much to talk about. I have so much draft and free agency stuff I haven't even been able to get to because there's so much other stuff going on that keeps pushing the other stuff back. So make sure y'all stay tuned, and I will be live streaming this Sunday doing a call-in show where I open up the phone lines where y'all call in and give your opinions on Scott Turner being fired, free agency, draft, all of that. We're going to talk about everything while watching the playoff games together. Sucks that the Commanders aren't one of those teams playing, but it is what it is. And without further ado, let's get it. All right, let's start with the Hard Knocks thing. So, the 4 teams that are eligible to host Hard Knocks in August 2023 are the Chicago Bears, New Orleans Saints, the New York Jets, and then yours truly, the Washington Commanders. I'm actually really excited about that, man. I mean, as far as the Bears, they have the #1 pick, and I think Justin Fields is fairly interesting, but I don't think they have as interesting of a situation as us. Now, if they go into the whole war room of the draft process and how everybody's calling their phone over and over again and negotiating trades and outbidding each other, maybe that would be interesting, but I don't think they have us beat. And we're going to dive into exactly why they don't have us beat. But we're going to go through the competition first. Of course, you have the Jets as well. QB coach, drama, and all of that type of stuff. Zach Wilson not working out. I think actually outside of us, the Jets may be the most interesting. I mean, they have a severe QB crisis. And the Jets owner, Woody Johnson, literally just came out and told reporters today that he'd be willing to spend money to get a veteran quarterback this season. So maybe they go and get Derek Carr. But he also admitted that the organization didn't do enough to develop Zach Wilson, but they say that they still believe in him. Who knows what's going on over there? But either way, I think that is a pretty interesting situation. And the Jets are a really good team. They have a lot of really good players and a lot of good personalities, vibrant personalities that will be fun to watch. The only problem is the quarterback position, and when you don't have the quarterback position figured out, that's why a lot of people don't see you as a sleeping giant that you are. The Jets are literally potentially a Derek Carr away from being at the very least making the playoffs, but also their defense is really good. Their offense was just holding them back, but then they have a lot of weapons, Garrett Wilson and all of those guys. So I think the Jets will be the most interesting out of us. And then next up you have the Saints. I mean, they technically have a QB situation that they're working on right now, but outside of that, I don't think they're too interesting. I think we are by far the most interesting. Like, if the NFL is going to be the one that picks, and like they're trying to see what gets the most views, what's the most drama, what's the most chaotic and things like that, I think we win by far, and I don't even think it's close. I mean, new ownership alone should be enough. Then the QB situation, are we going for Derek Carr? Are we potentially trading up in the draft to get a CJ Stroud, or even trying to even potentially get a Bryce Young? Highly doubt it, but those options are there. Maybe they let Will Levis or Anthony Richardson fall to him, or maybe they just go with my strategy and go corner this season, and then Sam Howell, and definitely offensive line by the second round, maybe linebacker in the third, and then let Sam Howell just ball out. And with his personality, I think he has one of the most entertaining personalities, most relatable personalities out of really most quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, again, when he first got drafted and he called up De'Ami Brown, if you weren't looking at the video, you would have never thought that somebody that looked like him was talking like that. Everybody kept saying that, Taylor Heinicke, don't start Sam Howell because Taylor Heinicke makes people want to run through a wall for him. I feel like if anything, Sam Howell brings that and more because he's far more relatable than Taylor Heinicke. I think his favorite music to listen to is like J. Cole or something like that. Like, he's extremely relatable for the locker room and things like that. And then even after the Cowboys win, the way he talked trash, like basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing, but I mean, we won the game, but we could have done them a whole lot worse. We made a lot of mistakes on our end. The score could have been way bigger than it was, and we need to run it up on them boys next year type of thing. And that's just a personality that you can super get behind, and I think that'll be really interesting for Hard Knocks. And then, of course, again, the ownership situation, I think that alone makes this the most interesting, even without Sam Howell, even without all of the coaching stuff going on. And then with all of the coaching stuff going on, I mean, Ron Rivera, is this your last year? A lot of these guys, and your head coach is potentially his last year, and your GM potentially is his last year. It could be everybody's last year, honestly, outside of like the ownership and Jason Wright, the team president. But as far as coaches, positional coaches, offensive line coach, DB's coach, which we're about to talk about soon, all of that, everybody's job is up for grabs. And who knows, maybe we present a situation where a really good offensive coordinator who normally wouldn't make a lateral move, maybe like an Eric Bieniemy, comes over to the Commanders to prove himself and to show the new ownership that, hey, you may want to get Rivera and those guys, but maybe I can be the next head coach. I showed you what I could do as an offensive coordinator on a 1-year prove-it deal, basically, and now promote me as your future head coach. So things could get really interesting for the Commanders this season. We're never short of interesting titles and headlines, but I think this offseason is probably the most chaotic yet. We still don't have a defined QB1 yet. I think Sam Howell gives you the best chance, but you never know. We may trade for one. We may draft one. You never know. And I think no matter what, Sam Howell should earn QB1. I think right now he's the leading candidate, but don't just give him the title today. Let him work for it. So that's interesting even in itself. And then all of the coaching staff changes, everybody coaching for their life. Rivera potentially coaching for his life. Martin Mayhew GMing for his life. All of the ownership changes. I mean, say Jeff Bezos buys the team, for example, whether we want to or not, if he does. Just watching that whole process of him taking over and what he's going to do behind the scenes, even just business wise and money wise, I just don't think anybody can really compete with us as far as Hard Knocks goes, honestly. And then moving on, man, I am afraid to report this, but Jeremy Fowler tweeted out literally just a few minutes ago, the Titans have requested to speak with Commanders defensive backs coach Chris Harris for a position on the defensive staff. More than likely got to be defensive coordinator. I can't say anything else. Could be a defensive backs passing game coordinator type role. Harris could also get defensive coordinator looks around the league too. And that's what I'm assuming. Why would you leave being the DB's coach, the step basically right behind defensive coordinator, to make a lateral move to go anywhere else? We're going to dive into that though. But I'm pretty sure Chris Harris is definitely highly touted right now. I'm pretty sure it's not only just going to be the Titans that are looking for him. A lot of teams are going to be trying to get interviews with him. I mean, first of all, what he did with St. Juice, Derek Forrest, and even what we saw a little bit from Percy Butler at the end of the season, and even Danny Johnson. Danny Johnson's a veteran, but boy, I wasn't expecting Danny Johnson to look like that this season whenever he came in the game. But we got to remember, Benjamin St. Juice, entering this past season, we weren't so sure about him. It feels like we've been sure about him for a really long time, but you got to remember that was this season. He became our best corner this season. And then Kendall Fuller out here getting 2 pick sixes in a season. Like, when did you act like that? I ain't never seen you act like that. That's Chris Harris. But even going back to St. Juice, just to really get it through to y'all, remember this offseason, St. Juice, we were worried about, can he even stay healthy, which was something he struggled with at some point in this season, later on in the season. But remember last year, he barely even played half a season. I was saying technically this 2022 season was almost like somewhat of a rookie season for him. It was almost like he got redshirted last year. So we weren't really sure about him. We saw flashes in the offseason, saw some flashes during the season, but it was this year when St. Juice became that, oh yeah, he can be cornerback 1. Or if he's cornerback 2, you have an elite cornerback group. That was this year. That was Chris Harris. Then Derek Forrest. Now, granted, Derek Forrest without Cameron Curl on the field was a different story, but with Cameron Curl on the field, Derek Forrest was really good, and Pro Football Focus felt like he was a top 5 safety pretty much the entire season, or at least the majority of it. That's Chris Harris as well for the most part. So I'm not surprised that people are going to be trying to get that man, because that man, hey man, he did a good job this year. And remember, teams were interviewing him for defensive coordinator positions since the 2020 offseason. Teams have been trying to get him away from us for years now. I'm not exactly sure why he stayed, but hey man, I appreciate it. And remember during the offseason when Jack Del Rio was not looking like him off the field and on the field wise, especially in preseason, there were people like me that were saying, hey, just go ahead and promote Chris Harris as defensive coordinator and keep it pushing, man. But I'm glad that Jack Del Rio stuck around because he did a great job. And that's one problem because, I mean, Washington could block the Titans from even interviewing Chris Harris if they wanted to, but then do you promote him? I mean, Jack Del Rio, I feel like, has actually done a really good job, especially this past season. Do you want to fix what's technically not broken? So I really don't know what we're going to do with the Chris Harris situation, man. I'm really confused about that. But I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Harris is just trying to get out of here before everything falls apart with the ownership, coaching staff, Ron Rivera potentially gone, all of that type of stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, man, I know it's been chaotic here before, but like I said, going back to my point with Hard Knocks, this is probably going to be the most chaotic offseason in Commanders history and Washington Redskins history, Washington football team history, all of that. This is really crazy. I don't think people understand everything that's going on. Most teams don't have an ownership problem. Most teams don't have a coaching problem, head coach. Most teams don't have a GM problem. Most teams don't even have a quarterback controversy. We have all 4 and more. Still got all of the off the field things. We are the most chaotic team this offseason, I think, by far. I don't even think it's close. The only problem, literally the only thing working against us as far as being entertaining is a lot of people doubt that we're even good enough for it to matter. But as far as chaos, we got that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Harris is like, you know what, man, I've been dealing with this for so many years. I feel like I've proven myself enough. Let me go ahead and dip up out of here and go to one of them other teams where everything is more secure, everything is more stable, and I can just do my job and that's it. I've already developed these guys here, put out a good enough resume. Look what Benjamin St. Juste, Derek Forrest, and even Percy Butler towards the end, and even veterans like Kendall Fuller and Danny Johnson look like this past season. You see my resume, you see my work, you see I put in crazy work. Let me go ahead and go somewhere else and get the money I deserve and the promotion I deserve, honestly. And then I was so hurt to see it. And we're going to talk about Jeremy Reaves soon, but he even tweeted out an emoji with the little tear. It had the smile, so it was like he's happy for his dog, and that's his boy and all, but he's really sad to see him go at the same time. And I completely agree wholeheartedly. Now, speaking of Jeremy Reaves, one of the last major topics that we're going to talk about today is Jeremy Reaves made the NFLPA's Players All-Pro team as a core special teamer. He's the only Washington player to make the first team All-Pro team. Again, this is voted on by players. Starting this season, players will also vote for their own separate All-Pro. So now we'll have 2 separate All-Pro lists, one voted by the players, and that's the one Jeremy Reaves made. We'll see if he actually ends up making the first team All-Pro or any of the team All-Pros that's done by the actual NFL that we've normally been doing for a lot of years so far. And just to let you know, the traditional AP team done by the NFL will be released later, but the players one comes out first. And I don't know if they're going to do a second team or a third team or anything like that, but Jeremy Reaves is the only Commanders player that made the first team All-Pro. And granted, it's a core special teamers, but that's still great. There's only 2 of them. They had Jeremy Reaves as one, and then Justin Hardy from the New York Jets. That's it. First team All-Pro. And the list is actually really interesting, man. I mean, there's some people that's kind of obvious, but then there are some people where it's like, oh, wow, they think that highly of that guy? That's how the players feel? Really interesting, man. If you haven't seen that first team All-Pro made by the players, definitely go look at it. Really interesting. But man, shouts out to Jeremy Reaves, man. His journey. I mean, undrafted in 2018, cut 4 times in 5 seasons, and then going to the Pro Bowl in February, named officially to the Pro Bowl, not as an alternate, but officially the Pro Bowl. And now he's also a first team All-Pro player in the first time that the players actually do their own. That is crazy. That's crazy respect. The fact that I think it speaks even more highly of him that players voted for him. I don't really honestly even care what happens with the AP team one. If he's voted as an All-Pro by the players, I think that speaks more than what any AP team list could put together, how they normally do their All-Pros. I think I value this player one more than what the AP one is going to end up doing. And also, shouts out to Jeremy Reaves because Pro Football Focus named him their top special teamer of 2022. Now, Cameron Curl got an honorable mention at one of the safety spots behind Minkah Fitzpatrick, but they basically did their own like All-Pro list, the top players at each position, and Jeremy Reaves made Pro Football Focus as well. So players know how great Jeremy Reaves is. Pro Football Focus does as well. We'll see if the AP team and the NFL does on top of all of that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't really care. If the players recognize him, that's the most important. And then Pro Football Focus recognizes him as well and acknowledging his talent and his production and his hard work. That's all I care about. I'm good after that. I'm pretty sure he's good as well. Pro Bowl, All Pro, and Pro Football Focus All Team. Come on now. That man had a clean sweep. Stop playing with him. Also in very random news, this happened a few days ago, but I felt like I did need to mention it. The Washington Commanders signed fullback Alex Armah to a reserve future contract. Remember, we already signed 9 guys, including William Bradley King and Troy Apke, like a week ago, and now add Alex Armah to the list for 10 guys that they have signed to reserve future contracts. Pretty much those guys that make up the 90-man roster throughout the offseason before we start to do the cuts. None of these guys are expected to make high impacts on the team. Probably none of these guys will even make the 53-man roster, but who knows? I mean, Alex Armah is from Atlanta, so of course I'm rooting for him, but I mean, we just don't seem to really need a fullback. If anything, we always bring him back to be like a backup, severe, deep on the bench backup tight end, or at the very least, a guy that we can simulate as a fullback for our defense to practice against in case we go up against a team that uses a fullback like the 49ers with Kyle Juszczyk. Of course, Alex Armah isn't Kyle Juszczyk, but it's better than anybody else we could throw out there to potentially fill that role when our defense needs somebody to practice against. So that's why we always bring him around. Just if you're wondering why we always keep Alex Armah around but never really use him in a game, that's the majority of the reason why. Oh, wow. They just dropped news that Atlanta could host the Bills-Chiefs game. The NFL announces that Atlanta's Mercedes-Benz Stadium would host potential AFC championship game between Buffalo and Kansas City. Oh, I want to see that, man. I may not go, but I love it when Atlanta has a lot going on. Like that playoff game against Ohio State, I was literally downtown for the Peach Drop. I don't know if a lot of y'all know, but just like how New York has the ball drop, Atlanta has the Peach Drop with performances and fireworks and everything like that. And all of the chaos going on. I mean, every 3 doors that I passed by was some type of bar filled with people watching that Ohio State-Georgia game. And I mean, when I heard yelling, I didn't know if it was for Ohio State or for Georgia. I was having mini heart attacks every 5 minutes. And then the fact that the guy missed the kick literally at 1 second during the countdown, literally with 1 second left to go into the New Year's, was just magical, man. And I just love it when Atlanta hosts any big events like that. I think Atlanta would be a great place to host something like that. I feel like we're great hosts, and a lot of people want to come down here all the time anyway. I feel like it only makes sense. Also think Atlanta's the perfect combination as well because Falcons fans aren't that serious. I mean, they're usually going to hiding and stuff like that. Georgia, we stand proud, but them Falcons fans, man, you do not have to worry about, like, say, Philly walking around Bills and Chiefs and having to get heckled and treated poorly by the hometown's fans. You ain't really got to worry about that with Atlanta, man. They not that passionate about the Falcons. So I think it's a good spot, man. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. And of course, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. Definitely let me know how you feel about the Hard Knocks situation. Do you want the Commanders as a Hard Knocks candidate? Are you just as excited as me to actually see what's going on with this whole owners process and all of that type of stuff and coaching staff? Again, this is the first year I've actually really wanted us to be the Hard Knocks selection. And so let me know if you agree with me. And then, of course, also let me know how you feel about Chris Harris potentially leaving us. Do you want him to? Do you not want him to? How do you feel like it will impact our team? Do you feel like he deserves credit for the development of Benjamin St-Juste, Derek Forrest, and all of those guys? And then also let me know how you feel about Jeremy Reaves being the only Commanders player to make the first team All-Pro for the first time that the NFL players and NFLPA have voted their own All-Pro team. And I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.